Good morning, all of you. I welcome you all to Ansarkari, and I hope that you all must be doing great. So today we are going to discuss about the important articles for 7th of January 2023. So the first article says that Supreme Court transfers to itself all the pleas related to the same-sex marriage. So the petitions that were filed in different high courts in India, they have all been transferred to the Supreme Court, and so that they are single-handedly dealt by the Supreme Court in single instance. And the whole issue is about legalizing the same-sex marriage under the Special Marriage Act of 1954. So what these different petitions have to say, let's see that. So there's fight for parity, and one petition says that the sexual orientation is an essential component of the identity and dignity which are embedded in the right to life. So this becomes important part of right to life that is guaranteed by Article 21, that is a fundamental right. Then others have to say that decision to marry or not is one of the life's momentous acts of self-decision, and law protects and recognizes companionship through the institution of marriage. So, sexual autonomy and the freedom to choose one's partner is an intrinsic part of the sense of selfhood. So, these are, we can say, what the petitions have to say. And let's see what is going to be the Supreme Court verdict on legalizing the same sex marriage. Then we see that kuki refugees from Bangladesh, they were trying to enter India through the border that we share with Bangladesh from the state of Mizoram, but they have been pushed back. And one of the member of parliament, he says that in history also around 1970s, thousands of displaced Chakma tribes who are mostly Buddhist, even they entered from Bangladesh into India, and they were allowed to enter India and settle in Mizoram and Arunachal Pradesh. So why are they being pushed back into Bangladesh right now, is what he argues. So you should be knowing that Kuki refugees and Chakmas, they come from Bangladesh. Then in this picture, I don't know what to say, but this is very sad to say. It poses, we can say, a very bad picture to healthy democracy. And this is what we can see, that how the elected representatives, they are functioning. Again, you can see chairs are being thrown, and you can see the whole ruckus being created. Then regarding coffee and organic farming, that is being practiced by the traditional farmers in Kerala. So they are seeing huge benefits out of this practice, the traditional practice of organic farming, and they do it for, we can say, the coffee plantations. So you can see in the picture also the organic coffee plantation in the Idukki district. So tribes people and other farmers, they traditionally follow the organic coffee farming in the Anchunad Valley. So you should be knowing that Anchunad Valley is there in Kerala, and this type of coffee variety, it is marketed as the keezhanthoor coffee. So keezhanthoor coffee comes from Kerala, and it is, we can say, an Arabica variety, and it is famous for its taste and aroma. So farmers, they do not use any pesticides and chemicals in organic farming, and the collected coffee berry is processed and it is also exported to countries like US, UK, and Germany. So they are seeing that earlier, the coffee used to be procured at rupees 35 a kg, and now they're able to sell it for rupees 50 a kg. So they are seeing, we can say, a huge profit this time. Now, coming to the editorial page, so here we are going to talk about the crisis in the international law. So we'll be looking at three dimensions. So the first one is going to be the geo-economic challenge. So here we are talking about the international law and the crisis that it is facing. So from the geo-economic perspective, we saw that after the World War II, there was a bipolar world between the capitalist America and the communist Soviet Union. And after the end of Cold War, we see that there was disintegration of Soviet Union, which led to the collapse of communism. So we see that after the collapse of Soviet Union, there was rise of unipolar movement which gave a leg up to the multilateral, and it led to 3 decades of relative harmony among the major powers. So, however, even during this period, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that is NATO, it attacked Kosovo, it attacked the Western forces, they attacked and invaded Iraq in complete disregard to the UN Charter. So we can say these US-led military actions, they did not attract any vociferous and international response as the Russian invasion of Ukraine did. So this is one thing, that the attacks or the invasions that have been carried out by US, they have not been, we can say, so much criticized internationally as Russia is being targeted as of now. And the relative harmony phase saw the spread of democracy. We saw that democracy was spreading. There was greater acceptance of the universal human rights and a global consensus for the maintaining international rule of law, with multilateral institutions and independent international courts acting as referees. So this, we can say, how the international economy and the, we can say, the world order was functioning after the collapse of Soviet Union. And as we said, that there was rise of multilateralism, we saw spreading of democracy. So however, these universal values, they are under threat as we have entered a multipolar world. And today the international law, it faces a new ground reality, the dwindling of the liberal and the capitalist West, and the rise of an autocratic China and expansionist Russia. So that's how we can say the new world order is emerging and how we are seeing a shift. Then we see that the Westphalian notion, that is the notion of the Western world of the international law, that ostensibly it championed and it promoted international rule of law, it promoted territorial integrity of the states, and also promoted the sovereignty of the countries. It is now pitted against the Chinese and the Russian versions that believe in gaming the international law for their own national interest. So we see that Chinese and the Russian version of the international law, we can say, and the territorial integrity of the nations and the sovereignty of the states, they do not quite matter when we talk about the interpretation of the international law as far as the Chinese and the Russian version is concerned. And so this clash between the different visions of international law, it sharpens in 2023, and it will push the international law into a deeper crisis. So this was the geo-economic challenge. Now, looking at the international economic lawlessness, we see that an important fallout of the rise of this geo-economic order is the concomitant spread of the economic protectionism. So earlier we used to promote, under the new liberal order, we were promoting more open economies, we were promoting free trade, and we were promoting obviously globalization. But now we are again seeing a shift of the economies towards protectionism. And that is one reason behind that is the geo-economic challenge that we just discussed, and the change in world order because of, we can say, expansionist Russia and the autocratic China. So Washington, it is fast backtracking on its neoliberal consensus, which promoted interdependence and non-discrimination in the international economic law, that it promoted and it has been promoting since 3 decades. And we see that there is a transition when now here we'll be looking at what are the examples when we talk about the US economy is also now shifting more towards protectionism. So the first is that it aims to transition, basically it has recently adopted the Inflation Reduction Act, which aims to transition to the clean energy by providing massive industrial subsidies to the domestic American companies at the cost of the imports and the foreign companies. And yesterday also we discussed this point in the context of the subsidies that it is providing to promote its green hydrogen economy. And that has been highlighted by India at WTO also. And another example is that US has rejected the recent WTO's panel report that held the US protectionist industrial policies as illegal. And also, third example is that US has also strangled the WTO's effective dispute settlement mechanism by relentlessly blocking the appointment of the appellate body members. So this thing also remains pending on the part of the US. And that's how we can say how we are seeing a shift towards protectionism as far as the West is concerned. The third challenge is the populist challenge. So the international law in 2023, it will continue to face challenges from the populist and the ethno-nationalist regimes in several countries such as Hungary, Turkey, Poland, and Israel. So populist attacks, it attacked the legitimacy of the international law and referred to it as a foreign law. So that is one of the populist challenge, and we see that crisis in international law will exist if the phenomenon of imperialism is not addressed. So there are different perspectives and point of views that we are now seeing. So first is that if imperialism is not addressed, we'll be looking at the crisis and we'll be seeing the crisis in international law and its functioning. Then another view says that the crisis occur in the international law because of the absence of any constitutional order, and other than the constitutional order of the states, and this arguably it allows the nationalism to trump the international law. So that's how we can say nationalism remains above the international law, and there is crisis of international law today, and that is, we can say, it is equivalent to the crisis of liberal democracy. So these are different point of views, and we say that will 2023 see the international community fight back against the relentless assaults posed by securitization, populism, and protectionism on the core universal values that international law enshrines. So we understood how the world economic order, and it is changing, and there are three challenges that exist to the, we can say, functioning of the international rule of law, which includes the geo-economic challenge, the international economic lawlessness, and the populist challenge, and how it, we can say, poses challenge to the core universal values which are enshrined in the international law. Now, like few days ago, we've been like discussing about the debate between the collegium system and the NJAC, and obviously it was between the Supreme Court and the center. So center says, basically Attorney General, he says that center will now adhere to timelines that are fixed by Supreme Court for the judicial appointments. So we were seeing that center was deliberately delaying the appointments of the judges, and union government, it will now adhere to the timelines as per the recommendations that will be forwarded to the center, and the government's statement, it seems to be a step down from its earlier view that it was not a post office to clear the collegium recommendation. So we saw that how the tussle was going on between the center and the Supreme Court regarding the collegium system, because center supports the NJAC, but it was struck down by Supreme Court in 2015, and right now we have the collegium system that is there, which is regarding the appointment of the judges. And what we can suggest as a reform measure is that instead of coming up with the NJAC, which is obviously, we can say, it will be increasing the political interference, and there might be some questions regarding the independent functioning of the judiciary. So what we can do is that we can reform the collegium system in order to make it a more transparent system, so that these concerns, the present time concerns, are also addressed, because government says that the collegium system is opaque as of now, and so we can go ahead with sharing more information and making the system more transparent. Then we see our defense minister, he visits the Indira Point, which is there in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and it is the southernmost tip of the country. I hope you must be knowing about this. And it is along the Great Channel, which is popularly referred to as the 6-degree channel, and is a major shipping lane for the international traffic. And we also know that India, we address India as a net security provider when we talk about its role in the Indo-Pacific region. And that is there. We also have the Sagar program, Sagar idea, which stands for security and growth for all in the region. So that is there. And we also see that all women team from India to keep peace in Sudan. So an all women team, that is the peacekeeping force, has been sent to Sudan. So India is one of the largest troop contributing nations to the UN peacekeeping missions. And as we see that when we talk about women empowerment, so we see that women, they are taking the command. We see that UK ship on permanent deployment in Indo-Pacific, it makes first port call in India. So here, the question which should come to your mind is that the countries which we can say which are not littoral to the Indian Ocean region, even they want their presence in this Indo-Pacific region. Even they want to play their role, and obviously they might be having some concerns that they want to maintain their presence and have an equal say when we talk about maintaining peace and security in the Indo-Pacific region. So we see a UK ship which is on permanent deployment in this region, and it is imperative that the Indo-Pacific region, it remains free and open to all in support of trade, shared security and values. And talking about the green bonds, so RBI is going to issue green bonds in two parts. So the proceeds, basically the name is self-explanatory, that green bonds, whatever is going to be the proceeds of these bonds, that is going to be deployed for, we can say, green projects, and that will help in aiming reducing the carbon intensity of the economy. And center will also be issuing the sovereign green bonds for mobilizing resources for green infrastructural projects. Then Supreme Court directs committee to build a framework to ensure road safety. So specifically in winters, we see that so many road accidents and mishaps happening. And recently, Indian cricketer also met up with a mishap because of a road accident. So Supreme Court says that urgent steps need to be taken to mold the state-specific guidelines for electronic monitoring and enforcement of road safety. So here, Supreme Court is emphasizing on electronic monitoring and urgent steps they need to be taken to enforce Section 136A of the Motor Vehicles Act of 1988. And when we talk about electronic monitoring, so it includes speed cameras, closed circuit television cameras, speed guns, body wearable cameras. So all this falls under the electronic monitoring when we talk about ensuring road safety. And there is one section 215A and B which provide the function of electronic monitoring to the states, and there is also a need of formation of the National Road Safety Board in an advisory capacity, and also road safety councils were to be set up at the national, state and the district levels. So in this backdrop, we must come up with these measures so as to reduce the road accidents. And India is going to host Summit of Global South Nations. So in a bid to articulate the views of the developing countries regarding the effects of the pandemic and the war in Ukraine, India will hold a major international summit with the theme Voice of the Global South, with the theme of Unity of Voice, Unity of Purpose. And the summit is also being addressed as Voice of the Global South Summit. So it is going to be hosted by India and will be acting as a single voice of the Global South and the concerns that we share. And there's a case study regarding a tree teacher which comes from the state of Rajasthan. So a primary school teacher in the Barmer district of Rajasthan has achieved a record in family forestry campaign. So he has promoted family forestry and has planted 4 lakh trees, and he's connected 1.2 lakh people during his drive in the last 24 years. So such case studies moves us, and they become so important that specifically in the state of Rajasthan, obviously we see desertification and there is semi-arid region. So he's been promoting forestry, that is family forestry, and this needs to be appreciated. Then we see yesterday only we talked about that center has basically banned the tourism projects that were planned to be, we can say, that were planned to be coming up in the Parasnath hills in Jharkhand. So that was we were seeing it in the context of giving relief to the Jain communities, but now the santhals, they also stake a claim on the Parasnath hill, and they say that they worship the hill as the Marang Buru. So they say that before the Jain communities, before their coming, the Santhals, they were worshipping this hill, and it is important, and they also have proofs of it, and they also demanding the right to worship the Buru. So the Jains, they allege and they blame the Jains that they have illegally grabbed the place, and which is the biggest pilgrimage site of Santhals, and they also have the records to substantiate the same. So that is one more aspect that we see today. Then talking about the Pakistan's economy, so it is seeing its forex reserves touching 8-year low, and they are merely sufficient to meet their 3 weeks of imports. So Pakistan's economy, it has crumbled alongside we can say simmering political crisis. Because of political crisis, we can say that it can be one of the factors behind the economic crisis. We're seeing that it's rupees plummeting, we're seeing inflation at decades high level, and then there's devastating floods, and there's global energy crisis. That all of that combined, it has led to, we can say, a severe economic crisis in Pakistan. And we can say that somewhere it is similar to the crisis that India was witnessing during 1991, and it is witnessing it now. Then coming to the business page, so taming inflation is top priority for South Asian nations. This is what our RBI governor has to say. So he says that risk to growth and investment outlook, it could rise if the prices they put pressure. And Indian central bank chief has to say this, and he was basically addressing an event which was hosted by IMF. So he says that IMF says, the IMF represented, she said that India is in a relative bright spot globally, and we need to replicate the services export success in the manufacturing sector also. So as we have been discussing about the services sector, be the services exports and the services PMI, so that has been performing really nicely, and that has been, we can say, one of the safeguards and one of the factors which is leading to good economic growth. And even IMF addresses that India is, we can say that it is a bright spot globally given the global uncertainties that we have. So Indian economies have, it has been comparatively performing nicely, so which is, we can say, good thing. And we see that while the recent softening of the commodity prices and the supply chain bottlenecks, they have been addressed. So all these two factors have been, we can say, have contributed in little calming down of the inflation rate. But however, we say that core inflation still remains at 6%, and going ahead, it can pose a risk to our growth and also to the investment outlook if it rises in future. So prioritizing the price stability is the main thing that we are focusing upon. This is what our RBI governor says. And this is the optimal policy choice as of now. So for successful disinflation, credible monetary policy actions. So like whenever there's a question, or you even in interviews, you are asked that what steps should be taken to address or to control inflation. So the first thing, or the first point as a solution that comes to our mind is regarding a tight monetary policy. But there are other factors also you should be aware about that. So we are going to look at what all other important factors are there which help in controlling the inflation. So that includes targeted supply side interventions. So supply side factors also play an important role. We know there's tight monetary policy. There should be a fiscal policy. We should have a trade policy and the administrative measures. So they all have been, we can say, they have played an important role in the cooling down of inflation, whatever success we have seen as of now. But still, we need to keep a vigil on the inflation rate, because it is not still it is not in a safer territory as of now. And looking at the US job data, so job growth, it stayed strong in the month of December, but we seeing that higher borrowing cost because of the Federal Reserve, it is fighting inflation rate, and it is obviously raising the repo rate. So because of this, the borrowing cost has increased, and it can lead to the labor market momentum slowing down significantly by mid-year, that is by mid-2023. And talking about our agricultural sector, so Deb Roy, who is we can say the chairman of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, he says that our farm reforms are incomplete and the MSP distorts the choice. So farm reforms are incomplete in the sense that when we talk about our land reforms, they are incomplete, they have been partially implemented. And when we say that MSP distorts the choice, so this distorts the choice in the sense that since government majorly focuses upon or majorly provides MSP for 23 crops or 24 crops, so farmers, they are inclined more towards cultivating only those crops, and others, they get left behind. However, they play an important role, be it nutritional security, be it food security. So, and even from the environment perspective, so crop diversification becomes important, and given in this scenario of climate change, when we are witnessing the the impacts of climate change. So all that becomes important, and that's how we can say that MSP distorts the choices. So he said that minimum support price was not supposed to be a procurement price, but at present it has, we can say, it was tantamount to the procurement price. So that's how it is functioning. And farmers, are farmers not entrepreneur, they are not entrepreneurial enough. So by definition, an entrepreneur is a risk taker, and when we talk about farmer and his risk taking capability, we can say he takes risks all the time. So if you free the farmer from the intervention by the government, so Indian agriculture can be transformed, and India would not be able to reform the agriculture until it has a modern land system and the land records. So that is also one thing. And talking about or comparing with the reforms done by China in its agricultural sector in 1978-79. So it focused initially when it was just beginning with its structural reforms. So the first thing that it reformed was its agriculture sector in the first phase during 1978-79. And by and large, the output side, the input side, and the marketing side is controlled by the state in China. And the reform agenda for agriculture, it has not only been pending since 1991 in case of India, but it is still pending even today. So we need to address all these regions, and we'll be taking up this topic in detail in the Financial Express now. So this topic is extremely important given the importance of agricultural sector in India. Now let's take up the Financial Express. So in Financial Express, as I just said, that agriculture is important. So this article is again focusing upon what all steps have been taken by the government and what remains missing. So what is required. So we'll be discussing both these things. So it is, as you can see, the headline, it says that roadmap for farm subsidy recast is likely in the subsequent budget. So firstly, in this the bar diagram, you can see the size of food subsidy bill and the size of fertilizer subsidy bill. So food subsidy bill, you can see it has been increasing over a period of time, specifically since 2020-21, because of obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, and the government, it came up with the scheme of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, where it was providing free food grains. And also the fertilizer subsidy bill has been increasing because of the Russia-Ukraine war, and which saw a rise in the prices of the fertilizers. So we see that the food and the fertilizer subsidies, they'll going to almost cross rupees 5 trillion in the financial year 2023. And this is because of the volatility in the international prices of hydrocarbons and other fertilizer inputs and the free food grains supply scheme that was there. So I told you that in the food subsidy and the fertilizer subsidy, they increased. And we need to promote or focus more upon providing more funds as far as the research and development area is concerned. For the agricultural sector, we need to promote the usage of nano fertilizers, which is going to help in hugely and drastically reducing our import dependence when we talk about the fertilizer imports, because Russia is one of the major countries from where we import fertilizers. And talking about a food grain production, so adequate monsoon rains in the last 4 years, they have positively impacted the sector, and we saw an increase in our total food grain production by more than 10% since 2018-19, which reached the level of 315 million ton. And that was there in the year 2021-22 crop year. So crop year is from July to June. And government launched rupees 1 trillion agriculture infrastructure fund, under which several projects were sanctioned for the agricultural sector's development. And we need to focus more upon boosting the livelihood sector also, which has seen an compound annual growth rate of around 8.15% over the past 5 years, ending 2019-20. Then financial allocation of research and development and micro irrigation should get a substantial boost so that the productivity of the crops could be enhanced substantially and make Indian agriculture globally competitive. So when we talk about the quantity of production, we are quantity of food grain production in India. That is, we can say, oh, that is one of the achievements that is there because of green revolution and other initiatives that we have taken in the context of ensuring food security and being self-sufficient country. But now our reforms, they all everything must focus more upon on increasing the productivity of the agriculture sector, given we have limited land and we are obviously seeing that population is also increasing and India is soon going to be the world's most populous country. So in that backdrop, we now need to focus more upon increasing our productivity, be it through promoting nanotechnology, biotechnology, or even reducing the, we can say, the rationalization of subsidies and using modern technologies like drones. So all these things combined, they all need to focus more upon increasing our productivity of the agricultural crops. And as we had the aim of doubling the farmers' income by 2023, however, we have failed in that. But we see that the farmers' income on an average, it increased by around, it may increase by around 70% nationally in the last 7 years through June 2023. But this is obviously falling short of our target of doubling the farmers' income. And some states like Andhra Pradesh and Madhya Pradesh, they may achieve this goal fully. So these two states, they might see doubling the farmers' income. And the reasons behind not achieving this target nationally is the non-implementation of the farm reforms, such as non-implementation of the Model Agricultural Produce Marketing Regulation Act, the Livestock Marketing Act, and the Land Leasing Act. So even when we talk about the marketing extension as far as the agriculture sector is concerned, so we also need to focus more upon that, or connecting more our supply chains, and that is there. So we came up with the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, but again, as it has been, we can say a little, some changes have been made in this scheme, so which has led to the most of the states, they are backing out of this scheme, which provides the insurance to the farmers, because now they'll have to provide more subsidies on premium. So states, their share in providing the premium to the insurance, that has gone up. So since because of the fiscal problems, many states, they have backed out of this scheme. So this problem also needs to be addressed. And as we talk about, we need to reduce the fertilizer subsidy, we need to rationalize the subsidies. So that is expected to provide a roadmap for reducing the import dependence on the soil nutrients. So, sorry. So this fertilizer subsidy can be reduced by boosting the production of nano urea and also introducing nano DAP, which is definitely and majorly going to help in reducing our import dependence for the fertilizers and helping in reducing a fertilizer subsidy bill also. Then we need to promote the usage of drone technology, and we also have a submission on agricultural mechanization, which will be providing subsidies in the range of 40 to 100% for the cost of drones. And we know that drones definitely, they'll help in increasing the productivity and efficiency of the agriculture through crop assessment, through digitization of the land records, and spraying of insecticides and nutrients. And then we have the promotion of chemical free natural farming. So this should also form a part of our agricultural reforms, promoting chemical free natural farming. And recently, the government has discontinued with the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, but at the same time, it has also taken the decision to provide free food grains under the National Food Security Act for 1 year. And talking about the trend in the rise of MSP for paddy and wheat, so it has been consistently rising. And the policy of the cost, because of the policy that it has been followed to provide the MSP for the paddy and wheat, it is like the formula that has been used is cost plus 50% returns, and which was ensured since 2019-20 marketing year. So this was all about where we lacking and what steps are need to be taken, and we have looked at the performance of the micro things. So this article is extremely important from the agriculture perspective and from the mains perspective also, and from prelims also. Then we talk about the mustard output. It is seen to hit record levels. So the We have a national food security mission for oilseeds, and it has been supplying seeds, inputs, and other services to farmers in Assam, West Bengal, and Odisha to boost mustard cultivation in the region. So, when we talk about the states, so from eastern Uttar Pradesh to Assam, areas under the rabi rice, they are now gradually shifting more towards the mustard cultivation. So this is, we can say, one of the progressive steps, because rice being water intensive crop, and given climate change and India being water stressed country, depleting groundwater levels, this is a progressive step that from eastern UP to Assam we are seeing a shift from rice cultivation to mustard cultivation. And the seeds that are being dispersed to the farmers, they mature in 110 days. And when we compare with the mustard varieties that are grown in the states of Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, and Haryana, they have an average maturity of 150 to 155 days. And the record sowing is on account of higher mandi prices that were realized last year. So because of this reason, in this season we are seeing an increase in the sowing of mustard. And currently Rajasthan, which accounts for 41%, Madhya Pradesh 15%, and Haryana 8%, they all have combined share of 64% in mustard seed sown areas in the current season. So three states: Rajasthan, followed by Madhya Pradesh, and then Haryana. Then we have one more article to discuss from this newspaper, which is regarding the National Digital University. So this can be asked in prelims. So National Digital University and the UGC chief, he has recently revealed the framework of the NDU, and it is envisioned under the National Education Policy of 2020. And yesterday also we talked about coming up with the guidelines for the foreign universities setting up their campuses in India. And today we're talking about the National Digital University under the National Education Policy 2020. So there are several questions that we need answer for, and like questions like how the NDU is going to function, or what the technicalities will be, and how degrees will be awarded, and what are the objections regarding this concept. So how will this NDU university will be structured? So it will offer exclusively online courses from its partner institutes, which could be both private or public universities. So this is one thing, and the institution will function under a hub and spoke model. So which is like one product will be delivered to various stakeholders from a central location, and courses, they are to be made accessible to the students from one portal, which is the Study Webs of Active Learning for Young Aspiring Minds portal, which is SWAYAM portal. And students, they can opt for certificates, diplomas, and degree courses. So how will the academic credit be granted? So firstly, the 50% credit, it can be acquired from one partner university, rest from any other. So students, they will be granted the liberty to sign up for whichever course they like, and they're free to design their own curriculum. So this, we can say, this freedom is there with the students, and students will be eligible for a degree from a particular institute when they have accumulated 50% of credits of a program from the institute concerned. So if they are able to fulfill this condition, they'll be awarded a degree, and they'll be awarded a degree from that particular institute from which they have acquired 50% of the credits. And in case the students, they earn credit from multiple institutions and crosses the credit threshold of 50%, then the degree would be awarded by the National Digital University. So these are two things, two scenarios which are possible, and how degrees would be awarded. And also students will be having multiple exit points throughout the courses. That is also there. So how many seats are going to be there? There are going to be unlimited number of seats, since it will be digital in nature. And many students who have, talking about the eligibility conditions, so any student who have successfully completed class 12th is eligible to get enrolled in the NDU. And what are the problems that NDU is going to solve? So it will be aiming to integrate the youth today with the constant need of skill upgrades in the rapidly developing and dynamic industry. So they'll be able to upskill and reskill and solve the problem of limited access to seats also. So now talking about the concerns regarding it, we see that objections are being raised regarding the liberty being given to the students on designing their own curriculum. So right now we see that universities, they claim their fame to the course structure that they have. So if students, they are going to design their own courses, so the credibility of the program can be brought into question. And then regarding the unlimited number of seats, so this we can say raises questions regarding the quality of education that can be diluted because of this. And educators also have a concern about the lack of experiences and the skills that NDO students will encounter, because obviously this is going to be online in nature. So acquiring skills like academic discussion and the critical reasonings, they might be missing in these students who complete their courses and respective degrees through NDU or the institutes through which they're able to complete 50% of the credits. So that's how it is going to function, and different technicalities and important things which you should be knowing about NDU. And that's it for today. Thank you for joining Ansarkari. Meet you tomorrow, but do not forget to subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video as much as possible. Thank you all.